Among Buddhists today, many of us do not truly understand the meaning of practice, and thus sadly apply it in mistaken ways. When people go to the temple to take refuge in the three jewels, they often think that from then on, the Buddha will protect them, keeping them healthy, their families safe, and fulfilling all their wishes. When they die, they expect the Buddha to personally escort them to the Pure Land. But they do not realize that taking refuge in the three jewels means making a personal commitment to abandon bad habits and wrongdoings, to overcome every base or evil thought and action, and to cultivate enough virtue and merit to be reborn in the Buddha's realm. Many mistakenly believe that practice simply means relying on the triple gem, praying to the Buddha, having their wishes fulfilled, and living in peace throughout their lives. This kind of thinking leads to a dependent and weak-willed approach that entirely misses the true meaning of spiritual practice. Because human nature is often timid, fearful, and greedy, many people entering the path of practice prefer to rely on external forces, to pray and to beg. This distorts the true spirit of Buddhist cultivation. Weakness, arising from a mindset of weakness. Some Buddhists, upon taking refuge in the three jewels, place the entirety of their lives and the lives of their families in the Buddha's hands. They believe the Buddha will protect them in life and welcome them into his realm after death. With this mindset, they think that practicing the Dharma simply means going to the temple regularly, making offerings, and praying often, that these actions alone fulfill their duties as practitioners. They revere the Buddha as a kind of protective deity, believing he has the power to shield them and their families from harm. So, when misfortune strikes them or their loved ones, they sincerely and fervently pray for the Buddha's help. But if their prayers go unanswered, and they hear of some psychic or spiritual medium who supposedly grants wishes, or a powerful deity who fulfills prayers, they are quick to bring incense and offerings there instead. Because their faith in the Buddha was based on dependency, when their expectations are not met, they easily turn elsewhere. Fear, when encountering accidents or misfortunes. People often do not know where to find peace or refuge. Hearing someone say that taking refuge in the Buddha will bring safety, they immediately seek to take refuge in the three jewels. They believe that taking refuge in the Buddha means they will be protected and rescued from all dangers. As a result, they think that practicing Buddhism simply means praying, pleading, and sincerely begging the Buddha for blessings. Each night, they light incense and bow before the Buddha, praying for peace and safety. When someone in the family falls ill or suffers a calamity, they kneel before the Buddha's altar, earnestly begging for healing and protection. If their prayers are answered, their faith in the three jewels increases. But if not, they lose faith in the Buddha, believing he is not responsive to their wishes. Upon hearing of some other sacred place where wishes are easily granted, they abandon Buddhism and go there to pray instead. Because they came to Buddhism out of fear, their entire spiritual life centers on the desire for peace and protection. If that peace is not attained, they quickly seek refuge elsewhere. Greed, out of deep-rooted greed. Some people take refuge in the Buddha still clinging to their endless desires. They don't come to the temple to study or practice the Dharma, but to beg for blessings. They offer only a few sticks of incense or a plate of fruit to the Buddha, yet ask for hundreds or thousands of favors: peace for their families, success in exams for their children, wealth and prosperity in business, protection from all misfortunes, and even the rebirth of deceased loved ones in the Pure Land, and so on. They offer so little, yet expect so much. If their wishes are granted, they become diligent in visiting the temple. If not, they look for some other sacred place they believe to be more powerful. Because of such Buddhists coming to temples, practices like fortune-telling, astrology, and choosing auspicious dates have found a place in the temple to satisfy their demands. Much of the decline in Buddhism can be traced back to people like these. They claim to be Buddhists but don't believe in karma, don't understand who the Buddha truly is, and don't know how to genuinely practice. How can this not lead to the creation of confusion and darkness within Buddhism? These are the harmful consequences of the misguided belief that practicing Buddhism is merely about seeking peace. If a person truly understands that to practice is to transform what is negative into what is wholesome, they will not hold the mistaken views mentioned earlier. Their purpose in taking refuge in the three jewels is to rely on the true Dharma to cultivate and eliminate the diseases of greed, hatred, delusion, and afflictions within themselves. The Buddha often taught that he prescribes medicine according to the illness to relieve sentient beings of their suffering. Whatever ailments exist in our minds, the Buddha has a corresponding remedy to cure them. That is why it is said, sentient beings have countless afflictions. And the Buddha has countless Dharma methods. Therefore, to practice means to use the Buddha's teachings to transform our wrong views, negative thoughts, and harmful actions. Understanding this, we know that true practice involves studying the Dharma and applying it to cure mental illnesses within us. Studying the Dharma opens the eye of wisdom and gradually leads us along the path to enlightenment. That is what it means to follow the Buddha's path. The Buddha was an awakened being, and Buddhism is the path that leads to awakening. All suffering of sentient beings stems from ignorance. To be free from suffering, one must awaken. However, awakening can happen at different levels. The deeper the awakening, the less suffering one experiences. Studying the Dharma is learning from the Buddha, and applying the teachings is practicing Buddhism. With this spirit of learning and cultivation, there is no dependence, no begging, no rituals of petitioning. Instead, each person lights their own torch of wisdom and uses it to ignite the flame of the Buddha's Dharma. Such practitioners are not weak, fearful, or greedy. They are determined, courageous, and persistent in their own effort to cultivate until they reach liberation. Greed, hatred, and delusion are the enemies they vow to fight until they are completely destroyed. For this reason, every step in practice brings more peace. The more one cultivates, the more suffering dissolves. Just as frost melts under the rising sun, there is no reason to turn back to the wrong path. Having many people believe in the Buddha does not necessarily mean that Buddhism is thriving. If that belief is based on dependence, begging, or superstitious rituals, then even if there are millions of followers, Buddhism remains shrouded in darkness, because superstition lacks true understanding. And without awakening, what connection can one truly have with the Buddha's path? If we sincerely want to practice according to the Buddha's teachings, we must strive to open our eyes of wisdom and recognize the truths conveyed by the Buddha. For example, the Buddha taught, all phenomena are impermanent. We must contemplate this truth deeply and thoroughly. Only by understanding it completely can we truly taste the flavor of impermanence, the profound Dharma offered by the Buddha. The principle of cause and effect is the foundation of Buddhism. If we do not reflect deeply upon it, true faith is difficult to arise. The Buddha taught that to believe in cause and effect is right faith. If we are not willing to carefully and thoroughly examine and contemplate it, how can we develop solid faith in karma? Without faith in cause and effect, we easily fall into weakness, fear, and superstition. The doctrine of dependent origination is the truth behind all phenomena. Without deep and refined contemplation, we cannot understand its profound meaning. Without understanding dependent origination, how can we appreciate the sublime nature of Buddhism and give rise to reverence and trust? To truly taste the profound flavor of the Dharma, Buddhists must diligently reflect and thoroughly contemplate the teachings in a subtle and precise manner, just as one must chew food well to fully enjoy its flavor. At the same time, a practitioner must apply the Dharma completely in daily life. Everyone acknowledges that within the human mind exists both virtuous and evil tendencies. Evil leads to suffering for ourselves and others. In this life and future lives, it degrades human beings into lowly, miserable states. Virtue brings happiness for ourselves and others, now and in the future, and helps develop people into noble and saintly beings. If we want to end suffering and attain happiness, we must eliminate our evil tendencies and nurture our virtuous nature. This is the essence of practice. Spiritual cultivation is a vital requirement for everyone. Regardless of background or status, anyone who desires to be free from suffering and to ascend toward wisdom and holiness must practice. I hope that all Buddhists will reflect on which of the two types they belong to. If you have come to the Buddha merely to seek peace and safety, then be courageous and shift your direction, to rise up and become a true practitioner who does not retreat from the path. If you have come to the Buddha to transform the negative into the good, then put in even more effort to completely eliminate all defilements and suffering, and steadily walk the path to enlightenment with inner freedom. When all Buddhists become people of right faith, applying the true Dharma to transform their body, speech, and mind into pure goodness, only then will Buddhism truly become the bright torch illuminating the path for sentient beings to emerge from the darkness of ignorance.